Hello, we have Cookies56 here, and this is my third Minecraft Forge modding tutorial. And in this tutorial we'll be doing items, and we'll be doing all sorts of things with the item, hopefully. So let's just actually make the item first of all. It's just a basic thing, and then I'll go over more stuff. So we can put our item stuff in our main mod file, and if you're making a mod which is only going to have one or two items, or like a couple of blocks, a couple of items, you know, not too many, then it'll you could probably just do it in here. But if you're making a mod that has a lot of things, it's generally better to make a separate file for your items and blocks, so then this file doesn't get huge and it's easier to manage. So to do that, we're gonna make a new package, and it's just gonna be called item, and we're gonna call the class that we're gonna make mod items. We could call it items if you wanted, but there is a class in Minecraft called items, and while you can have classes with the same name, if you want to use both in the same class, then you'll need to use the import. You need to use the full package name for one of them, which is kind of annoying. Right, so I'm going to make a method here which we're going to call in the main mod file, and I'll just call it pre-init because we're going to be calling it in the pre-init. And in here, this is where we're going to initialize our items, and then we're going to make a item variable here and import that net.minecraft.item we want, and I'll call this tutorial item, and then we want to initialize our tutorial item in here, so we do tutorial item equals new item. So we can just do item and not make our own class, and that will work fine. And then we want to set the unlocalized name, so I'm just going to call it tutorial underscore item. And then I'm going to set the creative tab as well. And we've got our own tab, so we can do tutorial mod.tab tutorial. If you want to put it in a vanilla tab, just do creative tabs dot, and then you can see all the ones here. But we're not going to do that. Whoops. So we have tab tutorial there, and it's going to appear in there. This won't work though because we still need to register it. So I'm going to make a new method here, and it's also going to be a public static void, and this is going to be register items. And in here we need to do game registry dot register, and then we want to get the item in here, so that, and then new resource location, and then we want our mod ID, so mod ID, and then we want our unlocalized name, so tutorial underscore item. And then for actually rendering them, we're going to have two methods here. We're going to have register renders, and we're going to have another method called register render. If that's too confusing, you could come up with another name, but renders is like all of them, and then render is going to do something that's a little bit easier for us. So what we want to do is Minecraft. Oh right, we need a thing here. We want to just take in an item. We want Minecraft.get Minecraft, and then get render item, and then get item model measure, then register, then the item that we've taken in. The metadata is just going to be 0, And then we got a new model resource location. And then this is going to be mod ID plus a colon, and then plus the item's unlocalized name. So, and then we're going to do substring 5. So what this means is that we're getting, so when you do get unlocalized name, returns the unlocalized name with item dot. So for this it would say item dot tutorial underscore item, but we don't want item dot tutorial underscore item, we just want tutorial underscore item. So substring 5, so it's 5 characters because item is 4 and then the dot, that's 5th. So we just get this part of the string rather than just show you. So this would be the full string that unlocalized name get unlocalized rename would return. We just want this part, so we go substring 5, so that goes 5 along, and then we don't have that. I hope that was understandable. So as the second parameter for the model resource location, we want inventory. And now that we have that, we can just do register render, and then we give it our tutorial item. Now, we have done all this, and this should work, although we have not called any of these methods anywhere, so they're not going to do a single thing. So, first of all, I'm actually going to do the register items. I'm just going to call it in here, so we don't have to call that ourselves. Like, we can just call the pre-init in the main mod file. So I'm going to do it here, and we're just going to do mod items. If it would come up, there it is. And then pre-init. And then for our render stuff, we don't want to put that in the main mod file because it's client side only. So we're going to go into our client proxy, and in here we're going to do mod items. In fact, no, sorry. No, not in the pre-init, in the init. So mod items dot register renders. And now that that's all done, this will work, although we don't have a texture set up for our item, but that is fine. I will get that done after we just test it. While we're here though, we might as well localize the item name. So I'll put items, and then it's just item dot, and then the unlocalized name, tutorial item dot name, like that, and then I'll just call it tutorial item. For blocks, which we'll be doing in the next tutorial, that'll be a tile instead of item, which is kind of convenient because that's still 5 characters, so the substring 5 will work for it. So I'll launch Minecraft now. So now Minecraft has started, so let's go and actually load the world. And we can see that in our tutorial mod creative tab we have tutorial item, which is localized, and it doesn't have a texture yet, which we will get to now. So we need 2 things. We need the texture file, and we also need a JSON model file. Oh, that's on fire. A JSON model file, which is really easy to make for a basic looking item, an item that will look like any of these sort of items. So redstone is just a flat, normal item. Now, another kind of item you may want to make, although it won't act like one yet, is a sword is held slightly different to a normal item. We can actually just do that. We can do that really easily. I'll get to that in just a bit. But there are other things that we want to make a sword and other tools. So a sword has attack damage rather than a standard item which doesn't have anything. You can see like arrows just don't have that. So let's quit. And I've made this texture here. It's lovely and terrible. So we want to go to tutorial mod, main, resources, assets, tutorial mod. So since we made these folders, it's going to be a little bit easier. So I want to save this PNG in the textures items folder. And then you want to call this, well, you don't have to call the texture file the same, it doesn't have to have the same name as the item's unlocalized name. That used to be the case, but it no longer is. So we can actually name it whatever we want, but I'm just going to name it that because that's less confusing. Then I'll close out of that shot. Right, so we have our texture, and that's great, but we don't have the model, so we need to make a model in the models folder and then in item, and then we're going to make a new file. So this is going to be tutorial underscore items. This needs to have the actual this has to be the unlocalized name. It's a good idea to make them lowercase because then you won't make mistakes with case if you always know that it's lowercase. So in this file, it's going to be pretty simple. We're just going to have a couple things. So we're going to have parent, which is going to be item / generated. So the item / generated is a model that Minecraft has, vanilla Minecraft, that is the basic item model. We can do item / handheld to have it be held like a sword and any other tool. But we're just going to do generated. And then we need our textures. So you can actually define multiple ones here, but we don't want to. We just want the one. And I'm just going to call this one layer 0, as that's kind of a standard thing. And then this is going to be our mod ID, which is tutorial mod, isn't it? Yep. And then we want textures. Wait, is it textures? No, sorry. I believe we can just put tutorial item. We don't have to put. There we go. So the mod ID colon and then the item unlocalized name. Well, the texture name rather. So if we named the texture something else, then you'd want to put it here. I'm pretty sure that it looks in it might actually wait, let me just make sure. Okay, so sorry about that. Yeah, this is correct. So it will automatically be in the textures folder, so we don't have to specify that path. We just want to specify the folder within textures, so we can actually, we don't have to call the folder items. You could actually call it whatever you want. If you have a bunch of items and you have loads of textures, then you could have a subfolder in there maybe if you wanted to have them in, not just be in one folder that's just a mess. Why is that like that? There we go. That's neater. So that is the JSON model file. There's not a lot to it, but before we go and do that, we're gonna make our own item class. So if we just do new item, that isn't a very interesting thing, because it doesn't do anything. All we've done is set the unlocalized name and the creative tab, and now that we've given it a texture, but it doesn't do anything else. So what we're going to do is make a new class that is just going to be called item, and then tutorial item, and then this is just going to extend item. So yeah, it doesn't actually require anything in here, but we're going to change this to new item tutorial item. So now it will use our custom item class we have here. And something that you could do is if we insert a constructor, so that's with Alt Insert, you can do that. Of course, you could also type it. If we wanted to, we could. I mean, I think this is a little easier and neater. So what I'm going to do is add a name parameter, and then I'm going to do set unlocalized name and then name, and then I'll set the creative tab in here. So I won't give that a parameter because we're just going to always put it in our custom tab. So now that we've got that, we can actually remove these. We don't need these anymore, and then we're going to add the unlocalized name as a parameter here. Of course, you don't have to do that. You could just not bother putting a parameter and just specify it in here. If you were to make more than one item, you could make a item called like item tutorial mod or something, like the name of your mod, and then all your custom items extend that item, so then you could have this set up already for you, which would be more convenient. Anyway, I think that's a nice way to do that. So there's a bunch of things that we can do in items. So what I'm going to do first of all is just override some methods. So if you press Ctrl O, you get the list of methods to override. And there's a couple of ones that are pretty commonly used. So something like on item right click, and then add information. And what else could we put in here? So there's a lot of things you can do here, depending on what you're doing. You may want to use these. So on item use is another thing. That's different to right click, because on item use is when you are looking at something like a block, or well, when you do on item right click, you can be looking anywhere, even if there isn't something that is within the range, the player reach that you're looking at. On item use is when you're looking at something that you could use the item on, so like a block. So let's say, I don't know, you have a block that when you right click with this item on, like, I don't know, on stone or something, it then does something to the stone or whatever. That's what you use on item use for. We're just going to have on item right click though. Then there's hit entity, which is another kind of useful method. If you want your item to either get damaged when you hit the entity because you've not made it a standard tool, or if you want to make it so your item acts like a sword but it doesn't have some of the other properties that a sword has. Maybe not the best explanation, but I think this might be good enough. I guess we could put some other things here, like get rarity, and where is it? Has effect. These are pretty simple ones, but we will do some of these. So on item right click, we can do all sorts of things. What we'll do though is, since we have a lot of things here, in fact, let's get on item use. I'm actually gonna do something here. So you can see we get a lot of parameters with these. So we have the item stack, so that's the stack that the player is holding, so of this item, basically. Something else, in fact, that you might want to set is set max stack size. If you only want one, if you don't want like more than one in a stack, then you can just set it to 1. Otherwise, I mean, I guess if you want your stack size to be less than 64, then you can do that. Now, the parameters here. So, yeah, the item stack that you're holding of your item. The player, so you basically, and then the world, and then the position, so the block position that you've just used the item on, the hand that you're using, so either the main hand or the offhand, and then the way that you're facing is another one, which is pretty helpful, and then you've even got the coordinates of where it was used on. So the block pos is like, you know, like the position of the block that you've used, but then those coordinates there is like where on the block you used it. So if you wanted, I don't know, like when you right click on the top half of a block or something, then you could actually do that by checking the coordinates, which is, you know, this gives a lot of opportunities for doing all sorts of things, and having the world and player is definitely super helpful, and most things do give you that, so we'll make that do something in just a sec. So add information is a method that just allows you to add information, that's why it's called that, to the tooltip. So if you want something like either a description of what the item is in the tooltip, you could do that, or if you have some other things that you want about your item on there, then you can do that. And these parameters, there's not too many here. The one thing to note is this boolean here, which is the advanced boolean. So when you press F3 and H, I think it is, I'm sure some of you at least have done that before, where in vanilla it shows the durability of the tools, and I don't know what else it does, but that's the advanced. So when you do press F3 and H, if you check if it's advanced, then you could add something when someone presses F3 and H. Otherwise, that's not too useful, I find, but I will. So this list here is the lines on the tooltip. So every time you add a new entry or a new item to this list, that's a new line in the tooltip. Although it will wrap the text. So if you have a super long tooltip on one line, it will actually it won't just go off the edge of the screen. And then of course we got our stack and the player, as usual in most things. Of course these don't, but so the what we're going to do here is just do tooltip.add. Also to note is that this list, the part of this list is actually the name of the item. The first item in the list is the name. So if you were to clear this list, then it wouldn't have a name on the tooltip, which is kind of strange, but I guess it makes sense since the name is part of the tooltip. And I'm just going to say item tooltip. Of course, you probably don't want to just put that as your tooltip, but it's just a tutorial, so of course this isn't proper. And then get rarity is the method. So with like the golden apples, they have colored text, so that's all it is basically. So like the yellow and blue and purple, I think is the other one. So you have enum, rarity, and then you've got common, uncommon, rare, and epic. Can't remember which color is which. I believe common though is just white, like the standard text. So if you don't want to change the color, just don't use this method. Oh. Yeah, email, thanks. Forgot to silence that. Oh well. We're just going to set this to epic, why not? And has effect is a really simple one, where it just determines whether the item has the like enchanted effect or not. So if you don't want this, just don't bother. Now they do have the stack variable, so you can check some if you do want the either the rarity or the effect to be based on something in the item. For example, if you've got like a tool, you might want to say, I don't know, it's when it's got no, well, I don't know, anything. Let's say you've given it MBT data, and depending on its MBT, then you could give it an effect, otherwise don't. So we're just going to return true, just so we can see the effect. So something I've used it before is making a like pickaxe that doesn't break when it runs out of durability, and when it does run out of durability, it no longer has the enchanted effect. But when it does have durability, it has the effect. So you could check that. So you could be like, if stack dot, I don't know. So you get item damage. Let's say it's like greater than something, you know, greater than 0, then return true. Otherwise, you can return false. So one thing to do really is just to look through the methods here. You could also open the item class. So if we just control click this item here, we'll go to it. And you can look through and see all the methods. A lot of them have descriptions of what they are. So you can see called when a block is right clicked with this item on item use. See? So this is pretty helpful. So if you see a method and you don't know what it does, or you think you know what it does by the name and it doesn't do what you expect it to do, look in here. Although some of them I don't think have descriptions, although most things do. So you can see there's the thing that's added by Forge here. And there's all sorts of things. Forge has better documentation. You can see that it actually tells you what the parameters are, and it just has a pretty long description to all of these, which is definitely cool. So yeah, the item class is huge. There's a lot of stuff, and this is pretty simple right now. So what we're going to do is, just for fun, we're going to say if world in, so with the world we can actually check, we can get the block that is in a position. So get block state, and we have the position, so we can just do pos. So if we're going to say if it equals, then we can do get block, in fact. So from a block state you can get the block, and then we're going to say if it equals blocks. So this is the class that Minecraft uses for all of its blocks. So we can see we have air, bedrock, bed, all that stuff. And we're going to say if the block equals grass, then we're going to do world in dot set block state. So we can set a block to another. We can set a block state to be something else. So what we can do here is, so we want the position, so we're going to use the same position, and then we're going to do blocks dot diamond block dot get default state. So that's the default block state, and we don't need that last parameter. And that is just going to make it so whenever we right click a grass block with our item, it will change it into a diamond block. And this return here we're actually going to modify. So we're going to return here, so enum action result success. So these are kind of strange things here. So enum action result, we have three things here: success, pass, and fail. So success means that you've used the item, and that so if you're using it in the main hand and you right click, and then nothing happens when you right click with the item in your main hand, but you have something in the off hand that could be right clicked. If you do enum action result pass, then it passes it to the off hand, which then can do the on item use and see if it can use the item there as well. If it's success, then it won't pass it, and then it will just not use the item in the other hand. And then if it's fail, I'm not sure about fail actually. I mean, I assume it just won't do anything if you do fail. But most of the time I think you'd use success and pass. So we're gonna return pass if this isn't true, as our item doesn't do anything if we don't use it on the grass. So we could do something in right click. Yeah, why not? So what we can do is do with the player, something we might want to do is actually like rename some of these to like just player instead of player in, which is a little easier. So like here I'm going to change world in to just world. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but you know, just player is a little easier. So we can add a chat message by doing add chat component message. And then we do add, so we do new text component. We can do translation. I'll just do string. And then we can put a message here. So I'm going to say right clicked. Of course, we could also just do system.out and print line and just print to the console. And we could also use the FML logging, but we don't use that. So, and I'll just leave the action result to be whatever that is. The super method, so this. So it's just going to return that. I imagine that the super for on item uses probably pass anyway, but it's an example, so whatever. So I'll launch Minecraft now. So now Minecraft has launched. It shall load the world. And we can see we have our item with its texture, with a enchanted effect, and it has purple text because it is epic. And it has a tooltip which says item tooltip, as we wanted it to, and we should be able to right click grass and turn it into diamond. So that is, oh, and also right clicked. One thing you will notice actually here is that I'll just wait for this to fade. Come on, chat. There we go. When I right click, it does it twice. So the reason it does it twice is because that method on item right click is called both on the server and the client. So it did it twice because it did it on the client and then it did it on the server as well. So you can change that. What we can do is check if the world is remote, so that boolean. So if we do that, it will check. So if it's remote, so if we say that it is remote, then that'll be on the client. If it's not remote, then it's on the server. So that's actually really helpful. If you want to do things only on the client or only on the server, then that's what you want to do. So this works pretty well. We can get many diamonds. Of course, this isn't the most balanced mod right now, but that is fine because it is a tutorial mod. So there are many things that you can do with items. These are just some examples. So we'll actually go out of Minecraft, and there's all sorts of things we could do here. If we wanted to place the block above it instead of replacing it, we could do pos.up. So block pos has some pretty useful methods such as up, down. Is it? Oh, it's east and west, north, south. Yep. So you can move basically one block in any direction. Of course, if you do up, then you're expecting that there's not a block above the grass block, which there might be, although generally there isn't with grass in Minecraft. And that will just put it on top. You can also add. You can actually just modify the position, add to the position, if you want to do it, like add it by, go 10 in every direction, but we don't want to do that. This tutorial, of course, you're unlikely to do something like this in a mod, so we'll just leave that. So another thing that is pretty common to have in a mod is tools. And tools are pretty easy to do. So we're actually going to change this to extend item. Let's make a sword, okay? So let's say it's sword. So we actually need to change the constructor here. So we're going to add a tool material as the another parameter. We'll just call that material, and alright, we need the super material, and that is basically what defines how much damage and how much durability the tool has. So now we need to add a tool material here. So what we're going to do is make a new, enum helper dot add tool material. So we're going to make a new tool material. Of course we could, if you wanted to make it the same as diamond, gold, iron, stone or wood, the vanilla ones, then we could do so. Also, something that's helpful is that if you go in the tool material class, you can see all the values for wood, stone, iron, diamond and gold. So if you want to make one of your tools have similar values to different tools, then you can just look at the values here. So if you want to see how much durability, so parameters in the tool material, I guess I'll explain now. So they are actually here. So we have harvest level, max uses, efficiency, damage, and enchantability. So the harvest level is so in vanilla Minecraft, an iron pickaxe can't harvest obsidian. Of course, it can break obsidian very slowly, but when it breaks, it doesn't drop it. But diamond can, because it's harvest level 3, and iron is harvest level 2, and then stone can't get some things, and wood can't get pretty much anything. So, if you want to have your item, your tool, mine certain things, then you want to raise this. Of course, for a sword, this isn't really necessary. But that doesn't matter too much. So, of course, if you do want to make something that isn't a sword, rather than doing extends item sword, extend any of the other ones. So, item pickaxe, hoe, axe, shovel. What's going on? Huh. Wait, does it? Oh, right. No, it's item spade. That's what it is. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty silly. That it's that. So we'll just keep this a sword though. So yeah, that's the only weird thing. All the other ones actually have their proper names. Yeah, spade. And yeah, sure it is a spade, but it's not called a spade in the game. So let's actually change this back to not new. Enum helper dot add tool material. And actually, let's go back to the. Did I close it? I guess I did. Let's close some of these tabs. Let's go back to here. So, harvest level, we just explained. So, the next parameter is durability. So, you can see wood has 59, stone has 131, etc. Diamond has 1,561. So, if you actually want to know the exact durability, that's pretty obvious here. This used to actually be called emerald for a long time, tool material, but I guess they finally changed it. Anyway, so that's durability, pretty simple. If you set durability to -1, then it will be unbreakable. The only problem with making it unbreakable is that you can't enchant an unbreakable item, one that has -1. It has to be above 0, the max uses, I believe, for it to be enchantable. So there is actually a way of getting around that if you set durability to be like 1 and then overriding the methods for like when you hit an NC and break a block and then make it so it doesn't damage. But I guess I can show that in a bit. So third parameter is the efficiency, so basically how fast it will break an item or a block that it is efficient against. So, for example, pickaxes can mine stone and ores and stuff quickly, but they're not good for like dirt and stuff. So, they'll be fast if you set this value high. Then they'll be really fast against things like stone, which they can mine properly. But like dirt and stuff, they won't be super fast with. So you can see that diamond has an efficiency of 8, where iron only has 6. So you can see that they go up by 2. I was like the wrong thing. I was thinking 2, 0, 1, 2, 8. And then we got damage. The damage that the item does. So this is important for a sword because this is how strong the sword is. And you can see that these values actually aren't that high. So you may be wondering, first of all, why is wood 0? And then why is it only going up by 1 each time. Well, by default they actually have 4 attack damage. So it's always going to be 4 plus this. So diamond actually does 7. So that is why you can kill a something like a zombie in 3 hits, because it does 21 damage in 3 hits, and they have 20 health. So if you don't know, the 20 health equals 10 hearts, because 1 heart, or half a heart, is 1 in terms of damage. So let's say we made this 4, then it would do 2 hearts. Not, yeah, 2. No, yes, 2 hearts of damage plus the 4, so then it would do 4 hearts of damage. So, yeah. And then the last one is the enchantability. So you can see that gold has a super high enchantability. And I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure how this exactly works. But you could set this to, I mean, I guess you can just set it to something like this. Right, let's actually do our tool material. So I'll just set the harvest level to 3. Oh right, the name. So name, tutorial. I'm just gonna call it tutorial in caps, because they used to be in caps like that. I guess it doesn't matter too much. And then harvest level 3, max uses, we'll just do. Actually, let's put it to no. I'll just do 100. Why not? Efficiency. Let's just do the same as diamond. So 8. And then damage. We'll make it stronger than diamond. You know what? Let's make it ridiculous. Let's do 10. And you see that these are floats, so we could actually do like 10.2 if we wanted to. But like max uses and harvest level are integers. We don't actually have to put the F though if we want it to just be a whole number. And then enchantability, I'll just set this to 30, so it's super high. So this is a not very high durability, but super like good sword, and that will add a couple things to the tooltip, such as the attack damage and attack speed. So let's launch Minecraft. Okay, so here we have our item, which is a tool now. It's a sword. As you can see, it now says when in main hand, 1.6 attack speed and 14 attack damage. So we set it to 10 and it adds 4, so 14. So this will do quite a lot of damage. You can see it just kills a sheep in 1 hit. And you can see that it has the cooldown thing like the other swords, like the vanilla tools, and it does the like swinging animation thing. And if we go into survival, and let's say we break this, and see we now have a durability bar, and you know it acts like a normal tool. So let's go back out of the game, and let's say we want to make our tool unbreakable, but we want it to be enchantable. So of course, to make it unbreakable, as I said before, we can make it -1, and that looks great. If you don't want it to be enchantable, then just use -1. There's no point in doing what I'm about to do. So, but if you don't want to, the durability doesn't really matter if you make it unbreakable. You could just set it to 1, as long as it's greater than 0. And what we're going to do is, in here, we're going to override a couple things. So, on block destroyed, so the method when the block is destroyed, and also on, what is it? It's hit entity. And that is the only two things, I think, that damage the item. So what we're going to do is, you can see in here, on block destroyed, it does stack.damage item. We don't want to do that. So we're just going to say return true. I'm not going to use the super, so it's just going to, you know, just destroy the block and do nothing else about it. And then a similar thing here, you can see it does stack.damage item and it does 1. You notice it actually does 2 damage when the block is destroyed, for a sword at least. That's interesting. So we're just going to return true, don't want to use the super. And both of those will just prevent it from taking damage. So if we run the game again. So as you can see, we have our broken item now because it had like 99 durability. I think it still does. But if we just spawn a new one, we'll just get rid of that. You see that should not happen. You can see that it is not breaking even when we break a block, and if we hit an entity it doesn't damage it. So that has made it unbreakable. And if we get a enchanting table, we should, oh, and I'll need a lapis now when I, why'd I get 3? I don't know. No, not the enchanting table. You can see that we can enchant. So we could get, unbreaking's kind of useless, that's the only thing. You know, why not smite and unbreaking, cool. So the only thing about that is that you don't, you know, unbreaking is absolutely useless because it already is unbreaking. But something like sharpness and all the other ones should work absolutely fine. Like the something like fire aspect or whatever, you know, all that stuff will work great. And I think that's pretty much everything about it. You may notice that it says the in the tooltip name is the tab, so you can see this is in the tutorial mod tab in the tooltip. You can see we have a bunch of things in the tooltip now because we've got our custom tooltip thing there, and then the enchantments, and then also the attack damage stuff. So that is how you make a item. Just one last thing. As you can see, the item is not held like a weapon. If you set it to, in fact, let's actually do that. So let's just do. Whoa, caps is on. So let's say you want to change a something in the resources folder, any of these pretty much, but you don't want to relaunch the game. What you can do, which is pretty handy, let's say you change something. So let's make this handheld. Now, usually you just relaunch the game, but what you can do is, first of all, press Control F9. What the? Yeah, Control F9, and that will basically build it again in IntelliJ. Then in Minecraft, press F3 and T, and that will reload the resource packs. See in the console that it's doing it. And now it's done, you can see that we're holding it a bit differently. Of course, this isn't like a sword-looking texture or a tool one, so it looks a little weird. But you can see that we're holding it in the same sort of position that a tool would be held, rather than holding it like a flat thing. You can see it's also bigger than a standard item texture. So that is incredibly useful, especially if you've got a custom model that you want to have custom rotations for, and you can't get them quite right. That's a lot quicker than having to constantly relaunch the game. You can do the same thing if you add like or change the texture or change the language file. What it won't do is if you change the code. Now, if you want to change the code while the game is running, launch it in debug mode, and then whenever you make a change, just press Control F9, and then it will say like it will come with like some classes have been reloaded or something. Just say yes to that, and some things when you change you will have to relaunch. So something like something that runs in the pre-init or something, obviously you need to relaunch, because that is only called when the game is loading. But if you change, let's say, something that isn't something that's initialized and then never changed, like if you have a GUI, of course we haven't done GUIs yet, but let's say you had a GUI and you're trying to position something on the GUI, but you don't know where, like you can't get it quite right, and it's, you know, kind of hard to do when you're just doing code. You can get the game in debug mode and say like, oh, let's change the Y position by like 10 or something. Press Control F9 in IntelliJ, then reload, and then go into Minecraft, and it will change. Some things that won't work though is adding new methods or adding new variables. So in the like outside of any of the methods, so like if you put a variable up here, or you added, if you override and you override something in here, and you want to do something with it. If you're in debug and then you reload, you'll notice like a thing comes down here. If it's green, that means it worked. If it comes up with like a red thing saying something like not supported, then you'll need to relaunch the game for it to take effect. And it's definitely useful. I'd say it's most useful for GUIs, but you can probably find uses for it in other places. Maybe something like an entity, or I guess you could. Something else you could use it for is, let's say we wanted to experiment with this thing we made here, like changing the position of where it's set. That could definitely be changed during debug mode. So that is definitely a very powerful tool, I guess you could call it. And that is basically everything for what I want to do for an item tutorial. There is many other things you can do. As I say, just look through these first of all. You can see that item sword gives you some more methods here as well. And also, I haven't covered everything, but I've covered a couple of useful things. There are other methods that I guess are pretty useful, like the onUpdate, which is like which you can use for something that is constantly changing in your item. So let's say you've got an item that like auto repairs or something, or if it's like if you've made like an item that stores energy that automatically like recharges or something, that's when you'd use like onUpdate. But most of the time, if you don't want the stuff changing with the item constantly, you don't want to use on update. You probably want to do it like when it's created or whatever. And also, with stuff like here, you can see that we have a lot of variables here that we can use. So while I did just do world.get block state and world.set block state, there are a lot of things. You can spawn an entity. Like, look at the methods that are in there and see what you can do. So you can spawn an entity in the world if you wanted to. You can. Useful thing here is just setting a block's air. Of course, you could also do world.set block state and then position and then blocks.air and then get the default state. That would basically be the same thing. Then there's all these sort of things. Some of these I'm not entirely sure what they do. You can add a weather effect, like, you know, there's all sorts of things you can do here. You can use these for checking things, so like can see sky. That's you know, you never know if you'll need that or not. Yeah, the world is a huge thing, and also player. The player has some pretty useful things, like being able to open a GUI, although that's a lot more advanced. And you can also get the player world object. So let's say you only have the player, but you don't have the world. You can use the player to get the world, so that's pretty useful. Or if you have any other entity. And one thing to note, when you do Minecraft.getMinecraft, this is only used on client side. Never use it on the server side, because on the server, I'm even going to get rid of that. On the server, that class does not exist, and that will mean that it will just crash because you'll get a class not found error, which you don't want. So these like world is remote checks are pretty helpful. So just bear that in mind. Of course, if you are on the client, there are a lot of things that you can get with the client. So you can get the player. So even if you're on the client and you don't have a player or world variable, you can get the player. Of course, you can get the world from that, or you can do the world and you get the world. And there's also other things you can do, such as you can show a GUI, although that's pretty different to the player open GUI, which is something that you can do on the server to get certain information, like to be like, oh yeah, the player has this GUI open, so the server knows that it's open. You can get the font renderer, which you don't really want to use. You definitely wouldn't want to use it here. This is the worst thing ever, worst place to put it. But you can draw strings with that, and there's all sorts of other things here we can get. You can get the screen height. So this is the sort of stuff that you'd use in GUIs. You can use all this in the GUI. No, like, you know, you don't have to worry. And there are a huge amount of things here, but again, it's only on the client, so you definitely don't want to use that. Get rid of that as well. Don't want to use that on the server ever. Just don't do it. And yeah, so the player has a lot of things here. So of course we can add a chat message like we did there. There's other things we can do. We can get the item that the player is holding, which is pretty helpful if you want to do something depending on what they're holding. Check if they're in water. You can even attack an entity, so you can. That isn't something you probably want to do with that. Capabilities. Now that is a system that Forge adds that is very, very useful, but that is not what this tutorial is for. Set velocity. You can see we can even get the position of the player, the dimension, and get the bounding box. See, a lot of these are from like entity rather than just player. And you can see we can add experience. We can add all this sort of stuff. Just a huge amount of things. So yeah, just a good thing to do is look through here. The player.capabilities, and this is a vanilla thing, so the capability system in Forge is different to this. This is pretty useful, so you can see that we can check if they're in creative mode, if they're flying. We can get the walk speed and fly speed, and yeah, just a couple of pretty useful things there. And you can see that we have a couple of things here that don't have names, which is a little weird. That's probably because the MCP mappings don't have names for these yet. And here's another very useful thing. So the player.inventory. So you can do a lot of things from here. You can get the stack in one of the slots in the inventory. You can set a stack in a slot. You can get the size of the inventory. You can get all sorts of stuff here. The armor and current items. So that's the current item on the hotbar. So that'll be 0 to 8, I think, because there's 9, isn't there, on hotbar? And yeah, a bunch of things in here. So the inventory is kind of weird. Some stuff you'll need to use packets for when modifying the inventory, which I'm not going to cover right now. But packets are basically what you use to send data between the server and the client, and they're incredibly useful. We don't need them right now, but we may need them at a later time. So this tutorial's been pretty long, and maybe too long, but oh well. I've covered a lot of stuff here. Hopefully this is super helpful, and thank you for watching. If this video helped you, then give it a like, and if you want to see more, subscribe. And if you want to support me, go to patreon.com/wehavecookies56.